Hello, and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Matt Dietrich, and I'm here at the Illinois State Capitol, which will be the source of a lot of news over the next 7 weeks as Governor Bruce Rauner and the Illinois General Assembly work to meet a May 31st deadline to craft the fiscal year 2016 state budget. This year's budget negotiations will be especially contentious and difficult for a couple of reasons. First, it's the first time since 2002 that a Republican governor and a democratically controlled General Assembly will be working together to create a budget. Second, and an even greater reason, is that there's about a $6 billion difference between the amount of revenue that the state expects to bring in next year and the amount of spending it plans to do. A couple events in the Capitol this week provided a glimpse of what might be to come between now and May 31st. On March 25th and 26th, the Illinois General Assembly passed two bills that gave Governor Bruce Rauner special budgeting powers to close a $1.6 billion shortfall in the state's current budget. Rauner had requested the bills, but he needed the help of Democrats who hold 3/5 majorities in the House and Senate to pass them. To get that support, the bills named dozens of social services programs and the amounts of funding they'd receive through June 30th. The bills also called for a 2.25% reduction in all state spending for the rest of the fiscal year and allowed Rauner to take money from special state funds and use it on immediate needs. The Democrats who voted for the bills did so believing that the programs named in them were guaranteed to receive funding. Rauner lauded the passage of the bills as the dawn of a new era of bipartisan cooperation. He appeared on the Senate floor March 26th to thank Democrats who had voted for the bills. But 8 days later, on April 3rd, Rauner suspended $26 million in funding to many of those programs. Democrats dubbed it the Good Friday Massacre and believed that they had been double-crossed by the governor. At a hearing at the Capitol on April 14th, however, Budget Director Tim Newting told a Senate committee that he had warned in March that more cuts might be needed if the 2.25% spending reduction and special fund sweeps didn't bring the needed savings.
It was raised at the time. I sat right here next to you in response to questions. I said the saving, in response to the reserves, I said the savings associated with many of those are built into this plan. So passage of this plan does not mean that all grants that are being frozen or have been reserved are going to move forward. This bill goes a long way toward closing the gap, but it does not eliminate the need to hold up some of the spending and implement some reserves in other areas. That was my testimony before this committee.
Among the cuts was $4 million in funding to the Autism Project, a program that serves 15,000 autistic residents and their families. Whitney Rikas, a mother of 2 autistic children, gave emotional testimony about the prospect of losing this resource.
It's not easy for me as a mom, or parents in general, to say that they need help raising their child, in my case, my children. But when you have a child with autism, or children with autism, especially severe autism, you have to ask for help. You can't get by without asking for help. And the TAP program is our help. And because of the TAP program, I had hope that one day my oldest child would talk. And I have hope that one day, when my youngest goes to kindergarten, he won't have to wear that helmet. But without the autism program, there's not much hope.
But the bottom line is that the state simply doesn't have the money, Newting said. This is because lawmakers a year ago passed a budget that assumed there would be a tax increase on January 1st that didn't happen. In past years, the legislature and governor would simply have pushed this year's expenses into next year. That's how Illinois accumulated its current bill backlog of roughly $7 billion. But Rauner says the state must live within its means, even if it means tough decisions like ending autism funding.
In it, we end the irresponsible and reckless practices of the past and make sure they don't happen again.
Yet as he takes a hard by-the-numbers approach to fixing the 2015 budget, Rauner is building his budget for fiscal year 2016 on $2.2 billion in savings that some lawmakers say is a fantasy based on a pension reform plan they believe to be politically impossible and possibly illegal.
I would be remiss if I didn't say, though, that putting savings from any of these proposals in FY16 seems to me to be an absolute fantasy.
House Speaker Michael Madigan already had called Rauner's plan to spend the anticipated pension savings reckless, but Rauner has toured the state for the last 2 weeks, touting his turnaround agenda and his controversial plan to address the pension problems. He's staking out a tough position as he prepares to begin negotiations in which he and the Democratic leaders of the General Assembly must close an estimated gap of more than $6 billion between the state's anticipated revenue and expected spending next year. The big question heading into negotiations is which Bruce Rauner will see at the bargaining table. The one now repairing this year's budget strictly by the numbers, or the one who wants to spend $2.2 billion that the state may never see. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for another edition of Only in Illinois. In the meantime, please check out rebootillinois.com for all the latest budget and Illinois political news.